The massive ship floated in the darkness of space like a metal mountain. Admiral Kethver stood on the bridge, watching another world die beneath his fleet. Green plasma beams cut through the planet's surface, while smaller ships dropped bombs that turned cities into glass. This was the 17th world the Zephyrian Empire had conquered in 10 years. Kethver was 8 feet tall, with thick scales covering his body like natural armor. His yellow eyes showed no emotion as he watched millions of beings die below. The Zephyrians had been the strongest race in the galaxy for 300 years. No one could stand against their technology or their strength. "Admiral, the planet is secured," his second officer reported. Commander Vextel was younger than Kethver, but just as ruthless. "All major cities have been destroyed. The survivors are ready for transport to the slave colonies." Kethver nodded slowly. "Good. Load the ships and prepare to move to the next system." He looked at the star charts floating in front of him. Red marks showed all the worlds they had conquered. Yellow marks showed worlds that paid tribute to avoid destruction. Only a few white marks remained for unconquered systems. One white mark caught his attention. It was a small yellow star with several planets orbiting it. The third planet was blue and green, with white clouds swirling around it. The intelligence reports said it was called Earth by the local beings. "What do we know about this system?" Kethver asked, as he pointed to the white mark. Vextel pulled up the files. "The beings there call themselves humans. They are weak, pink-skinned creatures about 6 feet tall. No natural armor or weapons. They only developed space travel 50 years ago. Their largest ships are smaller than our fighters." Kethver studied the reports more carefully. The humans had no energy shields. Their weapons used chemical explosives instead of plasma. They had never fought a real war in space. By every measure, they should be easy to conquer. "Why have we not taken this world yet?" he asked. "The system is far from our main supply routes," Vextel explained. "The High Command decided it was not worth the fuel costs to send a fleet there. The humans pose no threat and have no valuable resources." Kethver continued reading. The humans lived on only one planet, but had small colonies on their moon, and on a red planet they called Mars. They had sent a few small ships to explore nearby systems, but had never tried to expand beyond their home star. "Interesting," Kethver said, as he closed the files. "Send a message to the High Command. Tell them I request permission to conquer the human system." Vextel looked confused. "Admiral, why waste time on such weak beings? We could conquer 10 more valuable worlds in the time it takes to reach their system." Because Kethver said with a cold smile, "Every species in this part of the galaxy will hear about it. When they learn that even the weakest races cannot escape our power, they will surrender without fighting. It will save us time in future conquests." The message to High Command took 3 days to reach the Zephyrian homeworld. The reply came back quickly. "Permission granted. Conquer the human system, but do not waste more than one battle group on such a minor target." Kethver selected 50 of his best ships for the mission. Each dreadnought was 3 miles long and carried enough firepower to crack a planet's crust. The smaller cruisers and destroyers could each destroy human cities with single shots. Against 12 small human ships, the force was massive overkill. On Earth, Commander Jake Morrison sat in his office reading morning reports when the long-range sensors detected something impossible. 50 massive ships had just appeared at the edge of the solar system. The computer analysis showed they were clearly alien in design and armed with unknown weapon systems. Morrison was 50 years old and had commanded Earth's space defense forces for 10 years. In all that time, they had never detected any sign of alien life. Now, a huge fleet was sitting just beyond Pluto, sending scan signals toward Earth. "Sir, we are receiving a transmission," reported Lieutenant Betty Clark from the communications station. "It is on all frequencies and in perfect English." "Put it on the main screen," Morrison ordered. The holographic image of Admiral Kethver appeared in the command center. His reptilian features and glowing yellow eyes made several officers step back in fear. When he spoke, his voice was deep and filled with menace. Beings of Earth, I am Admiral Kethfer of the Zephyrian Empire. We have conquered 17 star systems and enslaved billions. Your pathetic species is next. You have 72 hours to surrender your world completely. Lay down all weapons and prepare for transport to our slave colonies. If you resist, we will turn your planet into molten rock. This is your only warning. The transmission ended, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Morrison stared at the tactical display, showing the alien fleet. Each ship was larger than anything humans had ever built. Their weapons readings showed power levels that could destroy continents. Captain Lisa Bennett broke the silence. Sir, our entire fleet consists of 15 ships. Even if we had 100 ships, we could not match their firepower. Should I send word to surrender? Morrison looked at the countdown timer that had appeared on the screen. 72 hours until humanity faced extinction or slavery. Every tactical analysis showed the same result. Earth could not win a direct battle against this alien force. But Morrison remembered something from his training years ago. An old instructor had said that, when facing impossible odds, the key was not to fight the enemy's battle, but to make them fight yours. The aliens expected humans to be weak and helpless. Maybe that expectation could become a weapon. Send coded messages to all our hidden bases, Morrison said quietly. Tell them to begin Operation Phoenix immediately. And contact President Carter. Tell her we need to wake up every secret project we have been working on. Bennett looked confused. Sir, what is Operation Phoenix? Morrison smiled grimly as he watched the alien fleet begin moving toward Earth. Something these reptiles are not expecting. They think we are weak and helpless. Let them keep thinking that for 72 more hours. The countdown continued as both fleets prepared for a battle that would determine the fate of humanity. In the depths of space, ancient predators advanced on what they thought was helpless prey. On Earth, a species known for its stubborn refusal to give up began preparing surprises that would shock the galaxy. President Helen Carter stood before the emergency meeting of world leaders in the underground bunker beneath Washington. The room was filled with presidents, prime ministers, and military commanders from every major nation on Earth. The holographic display showed the alien fleet slowly moving toward their world. Ladies and gentlemen, Carter began, we face the complete destruction of human civilization. These aliens have given us 72 hours to surrender or die. But I did not call you here to discuss surrender. I called you here to discuss how we fight back. The room erupted in worried voices. General Robert King of the European Defense Force stood up first. Madame President, with respect, our combined military forces cannot match even one of their ships. We have 15 vessels in space. They have 50 ships each, larger than our biggest battleship. That is true if we only count our public military forces, Carter replied. But for 20 years we have been preparing for exactly this situation. Dr. Alex Harper, please brief them on our hidden capabilities. Dr. Harper activated the secure holographic systems that had been built into the bunker. The displays showed weapon systems and ships that none of the leaders had ever seen before. Project Phoenix has been building a secret defense network throughout our solar system. What you are seeing are the weapons we hoped we would never need to use. The first display showed massive structures hidden in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. These appear to be mining stations to outside observers. In reality, they are electromagnetic railgun platforms. Each one can accelerate metal projectiles to 20% of light speed. The kinetic energy from these weapons can penetrate any known armor system. General Patricia Wells from the Asian Defense Coalition studied the technical displays. How many of these platforms do we have? 47 active platforms with over 2,000 rounds each, Harper replied. But that is just the beginning. Show them the stealth network. The next display revealed thousands of small objects floating in seemingly empty space throughout the solar system. They looked like pieces of space debris or small asteroids, but the technical readouts showed their true nature. These are autonomous missile platforms equipped with quantum torpedoes. The torpedoes can phase shift through energy barriers that would stop conventional weapons. We have been seeding them throughout our system for 15 years. Admiral Gary Stone of the Naval Space Command leaned forward. Dr. Harper, these weapons sound impressive, but how do we know they will work against alien technology we have never seen before? Because Harper said with a slight smile, we have been testing them against captured alien probe technology for the past 5 years. Yes, we have been monitoring alien activity in this region of space for much longer than the public knows. We knew this day would come. President Carter took control of the briefing again. There is more. Colonel Ryan Foster will brief you on our hidden fleet capabilities. Colonel Foster was a thin man with gray hair, who looked more like a scientist than a soldier. For the past 10 years we have been building ships designed specifically to fight technologically superior enemies. The Phoenix-class vessels look small and weak, but they carry experimental weapons that can punch through armor our enemies think is impenetrable. The display showed sleek ships that were indeed much smaller than the human vessels currently in space. These ships use experimental fusion drives that can accelerate them far beyond what our enemies expect. Their small size makes them difficult targets, but their weapons can destroy ships 100 times their mass. How many of these hidden ships do we have? Asked President Liu of the Pacific Alliance. 37 Phoenix-class ships, with full crews trained in deep space combat, Foster replied, plus 62 additional vessels of various types stationed throughout the system. Our enemies think they outnumber us 50 to 15. The real numbers are 50 to 114. The room fell silent as the leaders absorbed this information. They had spent decades believing Earth was defenseless against alien invasion. Now they learned that their military leaders had been quietly building one of the most advanced defense networks in known space. General King spoke first. This is impressive, but these aliens have conquered 17 other worlds. What makes you think we can succeed where others have failed? Dr. Harper pulled up intelligence files on the conquered worlds. Every species the Zephyrians have defeated relied on energy shields and plasma weapons for defense. They fought the kind of battle the aliens expected. We are going to fight a completely different kind of war. The displays showed battle analysis from previous Zephyrian conquests. In every case, the defending species had tried to match the alien fleet ship to ship in traditional space combat. The superior Zephyrian technology won easily every time. The aliens expect us to be weak, Harper continued. They expect us to fight a conventional battle with our small fleet against their massive one. Instead, we are going to turn our entire solar system into a weapon. Every asteroid, every moon, every piece of space debris will be part of our defense network. President Carter looked around the room at the assembled leaders. We have another advantage these other species did not have. We have been fighting wars on our own planet for thousands of years. We understand tactics and strategy in ways that species who conquered their worlds through superior technology do not. Colonel Amy Phillips from the Marine Space Division stood to address the group. Our ground forces are also prepared. If any alien troops reach Earth's surface, they will find that humans are very good at making invaders regret their decisions. We have been studying their previous conquests, and we know their weaknesses. What weaknesses? Asked General Stone. They rely completely on their technology and their physical strength. They have never faced an enemy that uses improvised weapons, psychological warfare, and guerrilla tactics. Every world they conquered tried to fight them like they fight each other. We are going to fight them like humans. The briefing continued for 6 more hours as military leaders revealed project after project that had been hidden from the public. Weapon systems built into lunar mining operations, defense satellites disguised as communication relays, even the Space stations orbiting Earth contained hidden weapons that could be activated in minutes. As the meeting ended, President Carter gave her final orders. Begin immediate evacuation of all civilians to underground shelters. Activate every hidden system we have built. Send word to our allies throughout the system that Operation Phoenix is now active, and send one final message to our fleet commanders. What message, madam? President asked. General King. Carter looked at the countdown timers showing 68 hours remaining. Tell them that Earth does not surrender. Tell them that these aliens picked the wrong species to threaten. And tell them that when this battle is over, the galaxy will know that humans protect their own. As the leaders dispersed to their commands, President Carter remained in the bunker, watching the tactical displays. The alien fleet continued its slow approach, expecting to find a helpless world defended by a few primitive ships. Instead, they were flying into the most sophisticated trap any species had ever prepared. The next 68 hours would determine whether humanity joined the ranks of conquered species or became the first civilization to defeat the Zephyr Empire. Carter smiled grimly as she watched her hidden defense network come online. The aliens were about to learn why humans had survived and prospered on one of the most dangerous planets in the galaxy. The Zephyrian fleet moved through the outer solar system like a pack of hungry predators. Admiral Kethver stood on his flagship's bridge watching the tactical displays with satisfaction. The pathetic human ships hung in space between his fleet, and their homeworld looking as helpless as he had expected. Maintain attack formation, Kethver ordered his fleet commanders. Keep shields at maximum power and weapons fully charged. These humans may try some desperate trick before we destroy them. Commander Vextel studied the human ships on his scanner. Admiral, their vessels are even smaller than our intelligence report suggested. The largest one is barely the size of our scout ships. This will not even qualify as a real battle. Kethver nodded as he opened a communication channel to the human fleet. It was traditional to offer the enemy one final chance to surrender before destroying them. The gesture showed proper respect for the warriors who were about to die, even if they were pathetically weak warriors. The image of Commander Jake Morrison appeared on the main screen. The human looked calm despite facing impossible odds. Kethver had to admit the creature showed courage, even if it lacked intelligence. Human commander, this is your final opportunity to surrender. Lay down your weapons and prepare to be taken prisoner. Your resistance is pointless against the might of the Zephyrian Empire. Morrison's reply was steady and clear. This is Earth Defense Command. You are invading our home system. Leave now, and we will not pursue you. Stay and face the consequences. Keth laughed at the human's bravado. Consequences? You have 15 small ships against 50 dreadnoughts. What consequences could you possibly threaten us with? You are about to find out, Morrison said, before cutting the communication link. Kethver shook his head in amazement. These humans were either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Either way, they would be dead in a few minutes. He gave the order to advance and his fleet moved forward in perfect formation. The first sign that something was wrong came from the asteroid belt. Sensor Officer Zekmar suddenly looked up from his station with confusion on his scaled features. Admiral, I am detecting massive energy buildups throughout the asteroid field. The readings are consistent with electromagnetic acceleration systems. Impossible, Vextel said. Our intelligence shows the humans only have basic mining operations in that region. They lack the technology for military installations. Tell that to the energy signatures, Zekmar replied. Admiral, we have 47 separate power sources coming online simultaneously. Kethver was about to respond when space around his fleet suddenly filled with streaks of light. Metal projectiles accelerated to incredible velocities, slammed into his ship's energy shields. The impact readings were unlike anything in Zephyrian military records. Shield status report, Kethver barked as his flagship shuddered under multiple impacts. Forward shields down to 60%, his weapons officer reported. "Admiral, these projectiles are using pure kinetic energy to overload our defensive systems. Our shields are designed to deflect energy weapons, not solid matter, moving at these velocities." The Zephyrian formation began to waver, as ship after ship reported shield damage from the continuous bombardment. The asteroid belt had transformed from empty space into a weapons platform that stretched across millions of miles. "All ships concentrate fire on the asteroid installations," Kethver ordered. "Destroy their weapons before they can reload." Green plasma beams lanced out from the Zephyrian fleet toward the hidden railgun platforms. Several installations disappeared in nuclear fire, but others continued firing. The humans had built their weapons deep inside the asteroids, making them difficult targets to hit. Commander Vextol was studying his tactical display when he noticed something that made his blood run cold. "Admiral, the human fleet is moving. They are not retreating toward their planet. They are advancing toward us." Kethver looked at his own displays in disbelief. The tiny human ships were accelerating directly at his massive fleet. It was either suicide or madness. Then his sensors detected something that changed everything. "Admiral," his science officer called out, "I am detecting massive objects moving throughout our formation. They appear to be some kind of stealth weapons system." Space around the Zephyrian ships began to fill with explosions as quantum torpedoes materialized inside their formation. The strange human weapons phased through energy shields, as if they did not exist, and detonated against armor that had never been penetrated before. The dreadnought Conquest shuddered as multiple torpedoes exploded along its hull. Captain Murgath's damage report was filled with panic. "Hull breaches on decks 7 through 12. These weapons are bypassing our shields completely." Similar reports came from ships throughout the fleet as the invisible human weapons network revealed itself. Thousands of stealth platforms that had been hidden throughout the solar system suddenly began firing. The Zephyrians found themselves under attack from every direction by enemies they could not see. "How is this possible?" Vextel shouted over the noise of explosions. "Our intelligence said these humans were primitive. They should not have stealth technology or phase shift weapons." Kethver was beginning to understand that their intelligence had been completely wrong. The humans had not been helpless. They had been preparing. "All ships' emergency maneuvers, break formation and engage individual targets." But breaking formation only made things worse. As soon as the Zephyrian ships separated, the small human vessels struck like a pack of wolves. Captain Sarah Wells piloted her Phoenix-class ship Retribution through the chaos with deadly precision. Her experimental fusion drive allowed acceleration that made Zephyrian ships look slow and clumsy. "Target their weapon systems," Wells ordered her crew as they dove beneath a massive dreadnought. "We cannot match their armor, but we can take away their ability to fight back." The Retribution's advanced weapons tore through the alien ship's weapon ports with surgical accuracy. Other Phoenix-class vessels followed the same tactics, using their speed and small size to avoid the aliens. Powerful but slow-firing guns. Lieutenant Commander Danny Price commanded the frigate Valiant as it engaged 3 Zephyrian cruisers simultaneously. His ship was outgunned 100 to 1, but Price had trained for exactly this scenario. "Remember the battle plan," Price told his crew, as alien plasma beams flashed past their hull. "We do not need to destroy them, we just need to disable them." The Valiant's weapons targeted the alien sensor arrays and communication systems instead of trying to penetrate their heavy armor. A ship that could not see or coordinate with its fleet was almost as useless as a destroyed ship. Throughout the solar system the battle raged as humanity's hidden defenses revealed themselves. The Zephyrians had expected to face 15 ships with conventional weapons. Instead they found themselves fighting over 100 vessels, backed by the most sophisticated defense network any species had ever constructed. Admiral Kethver watched his tactical display with growing horror as ship after ship reported critical damage. In 30 minutes of combat he had lost 8 dreadnoughts and dozens of smaller vessels. The humans had not lost a single ship. Admiral, his communications officer reported. We are receiving surrender demands from the human fleet. Kethver looked at the message with rage and disbelief. The humans were demanding that the Zephyrian Empire surrender immediately and withdraw from all conquered systems. It was the most insulting communication he had ever received. Send a reply, Kethver snarled. Tell them that the Zephyrian Empire has never surrendered to anyone. We will reduce their world to ash before we accept defeat from such inferior beings. But even as he spoke the words, Kethver knew the battle had already changed. These humans were not the primitive species his empire had expected to conquer. They were something far more dangerous. They were a species that had learned to fight. Admiral Kethver felt something he had never experienced in 300 years of conquest. Fear. His mighty fleet was being torn apart by creatures he had dismissed as primitive and weak. The humans fought with tactics he had never seen, and weapons that should not have been possible for their technology level. Damage report, he demanded from his fleet commanders. The responses came back in a stream of bad news. Dreadnought Annihilator has lost main engines and weapons. Cruiser Deathstrike is venting atmosphere. Destroyer Pack 7 has lost 3 ships to human stealth attacks. Kethver studied the tactical display, trying to understand how the battle had gone so wrong. His ships were individually superior to anything the humans possessed, but somehow the enemy was winning. The small human vessels moved through his formation, like deadly insects avoiding his heavy weapons while striking at weak points with surgical precision. Commander Vextel wiped blue blood from a cut on his armored head. The bridge had been hit by debris when a human torpedo penetrated their shields. Admiral, these humans fight like no species we have encountered. They do not try to match our firepower. Instead, they attack our ability to use our weapons, explained Kethver, ordered as another explosion shook the flagship. Look at their target selection, Vextel pointed to the analysis screen. They strike our sensor arrays first, to blind us. Then communication systems to isolate us. Then weapon ports to disarm us. Only then do they attack vital systems. It is like they studied our ship designs and found every weakness. Kethver realized his second officer was correct. The humans were fighting with knowledge that should have been impossible for them to possess. How do they know our technology so well? We have never fought them before. Admiral, the science officer called out, I am detecting massive energy signatures from the human homeworld. It appears they have weapon systems on their planetary surface that we did not detect before. The tactical display updated to show new threats appearing around Earth. What had looked like simple communication, satellites and space stations were revealing themselves as armed platforms. The humans had turned their entire home system into a fortress. Captain Sarah Wells dove her ship Retribution through the gap between 2 Zephyrian dreadnoughts, while her weapons systematically destroyed their external sensors. Her crew had trained for years to fight exactly this kind of battle, against technologically superior enemies. Target confirmed disabled, reported her weapons officer, Lieutenant Kevin Stone. The dreadnought is blind and cannot coordinate with the rest of their fleet. Wells smiled as she watched the massive alien ship drift helplessly through space. Move to the next target. Remember, we do not need to destroy these ships. We just need to take them out of the fight. Throughout the battle zone, other Phoenix-class vessels followed the same tactics. The humans had studied every detail of Zephyrian military doctrine, from intelligence gathered over years of secret observation. They knew exactly where to hit for maximum effect. Commander Jake Morrison watched the battle from his flagship while coordinating the human fleet's movements. His 15 original ships had been joined by dozens of hidden vessels that emerged from concealment throughout the solar system. Status report from all units, Morrison requested. Captain Lisa Bennett provided the summary. Phoenix Squadron has disabled 12 enemy capital ships. Stealth missile platforms have destroyed 8 more. The asteroid defense grid has forced the enemy fleet out of formation. Enemy casualties are at 60% and rising. Morrison, nodded with grim satisfaction. The plan was working better than anyone had dared hope. The Zephyrians had walked into a trap that had been 20 years in the making. But Admiral Kethver was not finished. Enraged by his losses, he made a decision that would determine the final outcome of the battle. If his fleet could not defeat the human military forces, he would simply bypass them and attack Earth directly. All remaining ships form up on me, Kethver, broadcast to his fleet. We will proceed directly to the human homeworld. Let them try to stop us while we turn their planet into molten rock. 23 Zephyrian ships broke off from the main battle and began accelerating toward Earth, their plasma weapons charged to full power and their remaining shields reinforced for the final assault. If Kethver could not conquer these humans, he would at least make them pay for their resistance. Commander. Morrison saw the alien movement on his displays and realized the critical moment had arrived. All ships pursue the enemy fleet. Do not let them reach Earth. The running battle continued through the inner solar system as human ships harassed the retreating Zephyrians. Captain Danny Price led a group of frigates in constant hit-and-run attacks against the alien rearguard. Keep hitting their engines, Price ordered as his ship Valiant fired another spread of missiles. Slow them down so our heavy units can catch up. But the Zephyrian ships were still faster than most human vessels. Admiral Kethver pushed his remaining fleet to maximum speed as Earth grew larger in his view screen. Soon he would be in range. To begin planetary bombardment, Lieutenant Commander Grace Taylor coordinated Earth's final defenses from her hidden command center deep beneath the lunar surface. She had been waiting her entire career for this moment. All planetary defense systems online. Prepare to engage incoming hostiles. The moon itself seemed to come alive with weapon emplacements as massive railgun batteries emerged from hidden installations. Fusion reactors that had been disguised as mining equipment began powering weapon systems that made the asteroid platforms look like toys. All lunar batteries target the enemy flagship, Taylor commanded. Concentrate fire and show these aliens what happens when they threaten Earth. Space filled with streaks of light as kinetic projectiles accelerated to impossible velocities, screamed toward the approaching Zephyrian fleet. The rounds hit with the force of nuclear weapons, delivering enough energy to crack small moons. Admiral Kethver watched his shields fail under the incredible bombardment. His flagship shuddered and began to break apart as round after round slammed into its hull. Around him, other ships in his fleet suffered the same fate. Impossible, he roared, as his bridge filled with smoke and sparks. No primitive species should have weapons like these. But even as his ship died around him, Kethver ordered his final attack. All remaining vessels fire everything at the human planet. If we must die, we will take their world with us. The surviving Zephyrian ships opened fire with every weapon they had left. Green plasma beams lanced through space, toward the blue and green world that hung before them like a jewel in the darkness. The beams struck Earth's defensive shields and were absorbed harmlessly. What the aliens had thought was an undefended planet was protected by energy barriers that made their own shields look primitive. Commander Morrison led the final charge of the human fleet as it caught up to the crippled alien formation. His ship Defiance had taken damage in the long pursuit, but its weapons were still functional. "This is for every world you destroyed," Morrison said quietly as he armed his ship's experimental fusion charges. "And for every species you enslaved." The small human ship accelerated directly toward Admiral Kethver's dying flagship. The Zephyrian admiral realized too late what the human commander intended to do. There was no time to avoid the collision. Both ships vanished in a flash of nuclear fire that briefly outshone the sun. When the light faded, the last symbol of Zephyrian military might was gone forever. Captain Bennett assumed command of the human fleet and watched as the remaining alien ships drifted powerless through space. Some were completely destroyed, others were disabled, but intact with their crews still alive. "All units cease fire," Bennett ordered. "Prepare boarding parties to secure the surviving enemy vessels." the battle is over. In the sudden silence that followed the end of combat, humanity realized what they had accomplished. The mighty empire that had conquered 17 worlds had been defeated by a species they considered primitive and weak. Earth had won its first interstellar war. The debris field around Earth told the story of humanity's greatest victory. Pieces of Zephyrian ships drifted in the darkness while human rescue vessels searched for survivors from both fleets. Captain Lisa Bennett stood on the bridge of her flagship watching the recovery operations with mixed emotions. The cost of victory had been higher than anyone wanted to admit. Commander Morrison and his crew were gone, along with 2 other human ships that had been destroyed in the final battle. Over 300 human military personnel had died defending their homeworld. But they had saved billions of lives and proven that Earth would not surrender to any threat. "Captain, we have completed the prisoner transfers," reported Lieutenant Tom Brady. 47 Zephyrian survivors are now in secure holding facilities. The rest of their crews were killed when their ships were destroyed. Bennett nodded as she studied the tactical display. 3 Zephyrian ships had been captured intact along with their advanced technology. Human scientists were already preparing to study every system and weapon the aliens possessed. "What about the alien?" Admiral Bennett asked. "Admiral Kethfer died when Commander Morrison rammed his flagship," Brady replied, "but we recovered the ship's computer cores before they could self-destruct. Intelligence believes we now have access to detailed information about the entire Zephyrian Empire." The implications were staggering. Humanity had not just won a defensive battle. They had gained intelligence that could change the balance of power throughout the galaxy. The locations of Zephyrian bases, supply routes, and military capabilities were now in human hands. President Helen Carter addressed the world from the same underground bunker where she had announced humanity's desperate situation just for days earlier. This time her message was very different. "My fellow humans," Carter began, "I stand before you to announce that Earth has achieved total victory over the alien invasion force. Not a single enemy ship escaped our solar system. Our homeworld is safe, and humanity has taken its place as a major power in galactic civilization." The celebrations that followed could be seen from orbit as cities around the world erupted in joy. Humanity had faced extinction and emerged stronger than ever. The species that had been dismissed as weak and primitive had defeated the most feared military force in known space. But the victory had consequences that reached far beyond Earth's solar system. News of the Zephyrian fleet's destruction spread through faster-than-light communication networks that connected hundreds of worlds. Species that had lived in fear of alien conquest for generations suddenly had hope. On the conquered world of Kepler Prime, the native Altarians received the news with disbelief followed by wild celebration. Elder scientist Veltar read the transmission 3 times before accepting that it was real. "The humans did what no other species could do," Veltar announced to the Emergency Council. "They defeated a full Zephyrian battle fleet. If primitive humans can win such a victory, then perhaps we too can fight for our freedom." Similar scenes played out on 17 other worlds as enslaved populations realized that their oppressors were not invincible. Within hours of Earth's victory, the first rebellion broke out on the mining world of Centauri 7. The Zephyrian occupation forces found themselves facing enemies who no longer believed conquest was inevitable. Dr. Alex Harper stood in his laboratory examining pieces of alien technology that would have been impossible to obtain any other way. The quantum torpedo systems that had been so effective against Zephyrian shields were based on theories that human scientists had developed independently. Now they had proof that their weapons could penetrate any known defensive system. "What we accomplished here was not just military," Harper explained to the team of researchers studying the captured technology. "We proved that innovation and tactical thinking can overcome raw technological superiority. Every species in the galaxy will study this battle for generations." The political consequences were just as significant as the military ones. Ambassador Susan Davis found herself suddenly in demand as alien species that had never acknowledged Earth's existence requested immediate diplomatic contact. The Andromedan Council wants to establish formal relations, Davis reported to President Carter. So do the Free Worlds Alliance, the Stellar Federation, and dozens of smaller governments. Everyone wants to ally themselves with the species that defeated the Zephyrian Empire. Carter studied the diplomatic requests with careful attention. Humanity's victory had created opportunities that could shape the future of human expansion into the galaxy. But it had also created new responsibilities. Schedule meetings with all of them, Carter decided. But make our position clear. Earth is not interested in conquest or domination. We fight to protect freedom, not to build an empire. Colonel Ben Parker oversaw the construction of new defense installations throughout the solar system, using technology captured from the fleet. The hidden weapons platforms that had won the battle were being upgraded with alien power systems and shield generators. We cannot assume this was their only fleet, Parker explained to his engineering teams. Intelligence suggests the Zephyrians have dozens of other battle groups scattered throughout their territory. If they decide to send a larger force, we need to be ready. But the expected counterattack never came. The Zephyrian Empire was collapsing from within as rebellions erupted on world after world. Without their aura of invincibility, the reptilian conquerors found themselves facing enemies who no longer feared their superior technology. Captain Sarah Wells received a new assignment that would have been impossible to imagine just weeks earlier. Her ship Retribution was selected to lead humanity's first diplomatic mission beyond the solar system. The Phoenix-class vessel that had proven so effective in combat would now carry Earth's message of freedom to the galaxy. Our mission is to make contact with the rebellion movements on former Zephyrian worlds, Wells briefed her crew as they prepared for departure. We are not going as conquerors, but as allies. We will help any species that wants to fight for their independence. The Retribution's journey to the Altair system took 3 weeks using captured Zephyrian faster-than-light drives. When Wells arrived, she found a world in the midst of revolution. The native Altairians had risen against their oppressors and were fighting a guerrilla war in their planet's vast forests. Elder Veltar met with the human delegation in a hidden rebel base deep underground. The elderly Altairian's eyes filled with tears when he saw humans willing to risk their lives to help his people achieve freedom. Your species has given hope to billions of enslaved beings, Veltar said, as he grasped Wells' hand with his sixth grip. The Zephyrians told us that resistance was futile. You proved them wrong. Wells provided the rebels with weapons technology and tactical advice that turned the tide of their uprising. Within days, the Zephyrian occupation forces were in full retreat. The Altairians were free for the first time in 50 years. News of human involvement in the rebellions spread quickly through the galactic communication networks. Other species began requesting assistance from Earth's military forces. President Carter found herself making decisions that would affect the lives of beings on hundreds of worlds. We cannot liberate every enslaved planet ourselves, Carter explained to her cabinet, but we can provide support and guidance to those who are willing to fight for their own freedom. That is the human way. Earth's role as protector of galactic freedom was formalized 6 months after the Great Battle, when representatives from 47 species gathered on the lunar surface for the signing of the Free Worlds Charter. The document established Earth as the headquarters of a new alliance dedicated to preventing future conquests. Dr. Harper's research teams had unlocked many secrets of Zephyrian technology during those months. Advanced shield systems, energy, weapons, and faster-than-light communications were integrated into human designs. But the most important discovery was something the aliens had overlooked. They never learned to adapt, Harper explained to President Carter as they reviewed the technical analysis. The Zephyrians developed superior technology and then stopped innovating. They became dependent on their advantages and never prepared for enemies who would think differently. "Is that why we won?" Carter asked. "Partly," Harper replied. "But the real reason we won is that humans never stop learning. We studied our enemies, prepared for every possibility, and created solutions they never expected. That ability to adapt and improvise is our greatest weapon." The memorial service for Commander Morrison and the other human casualties was held in the rebuilt command center where the battle had been coordinated. Representatives from dozens of alien species attended to honor the humans who had died defending not just Earth, but the principle of freedom itself. Captain Bennett delivered the final eulogy for her fallen commander. Jake Morrison could have ordered Earth to surrender when faced with impossible odds. Instead, he chose to fight because he believed that some things are worth any sacrifice. His courage saved not just our world but countless others throughout the galaxy. As the service ended, President Carter looked out at the assembled representatives of free worlds and made a promise that would define humanity's role in galactic civilization for generations to come. "Today we honor those who died defending freedom," Carter said. "Tomorrow, we continue their mission. Earth stands ready to assist any species that seeks liberation from oppression. We will never again allow conquest to go unchallenged." The Zephyrian Empire continued to crumble over the following years, as rebellion after rebellion succeeded with human support. The species that had once ruled through fear and superior technology faded into history. In their place rose a galaxy where freedom was protected by beings who understood that true strength comes not from the power to conquer, but from the courage to defend others. Humanity had entered the galactic community not as another conquering empire, but as the guardians of liberty. The small blue world that had seemed so helpless became the symbol of hope for billions of beings throughout the stars. The humans who had feared no one until their fleet faced Earth had indeed fallen, but in their defeat they had unknowingly created something greater than any empire. The age of human expansion into the galaxy had begun, and the universe would never be the same.